Imagine having a pantry filled with delicious preserved food that doesn't need refrigeration and can last for decades. What might sound like a fantasy to most of us is a practical reality for the Amish, thanks to their time-tested water bath canning method. This centuries-old food preservation technique has been passed down through generations and remains an essential part of Amish life, allowing them to store food naturally, effectively, and affordably. Today, we're going to dive deep into the details of how this method works, why it's so reliable, and how you can adopt it to keep your food fresh for years. Number 1. The fundamentals of Amish water bath canning. The Amish water bath canning method is centered on the concept of creating a vacuum-sealed environment to extend the shelf life of food. The process involves several scientific principles working together to preserve food effectively. When the food-filled jars are submerged in boiling water, the heat serves multiple purposes. Primarily, it raises the temperature of the food inside the jar to a level that kills off bacteria, yeast, molds, and other potential pathogens. The temperature also helps deactivate enzymes that cause natural degradation of the food over time, which is particularly crucial for maintaining the taste, texture, and nutritional value. The vacuum seal is critical in the process and is what truly distinguishes water bath canning from other preservation methods. As the jars cool after being removed from the boiling water, the air inside the jar contracts, creating a negative pressure, or vacuum. This vacuum is powerful enough to seal the jar tightly, preventing any air or microorganisms from entering and spoiling the food. The metal lid of the jar is designed to bend inward during this cooling, forming a tight, concave shape that indicates a proper seal has been achieved. The method is particularly effective for foods high in acidity, pH level 4.6 or lower, as these environments inhibit the growth of the bacteria that cause botulism, one of the most dangerous foodborne illnesses. This is why water bath canning is especially popular for fruits, pickles, tomatoes, and jams, foods that naturally contain high acidity. Additionally, these high-acid foods often have high sugar content, which acts as another preservation agent. The combination of acidity, sugar, and vacuum sealing makes for a highly stable preserved product. The boiling water bath process does not just heat the food, it also drives out air from the jar itself. The expansion and escape of the air during heating create a space that will then contract and form a vacuum upon cooling. This prevents oxidation, a process that would otherwise lead to changes in the food's color, flavor, and nutritional content over time. A key factor in the success of water bath canning is timing. Different foods require different processing times based on their density, acidity, and texture. For example, dense foods require more time for heat to penetrate throughout the jar evenly, ensuring that every part of the food reaches the necessary temperature to kill microorganisms. Failure to process jars for the correct amount of time can result in an incomplete vacuum seal or underprocessed food that may spoil. One major advantage of the Amish water bath canning technique is its simplicity and accessibility. Unlike pressure canning, which requires specialized equipment and exacting pressure levels, water bath canning only needs a deep pot, jars, and a heat source, making it easy for anyone to start. Moreover, the reliance on boiling water means that no artificial preservatives are needed, providing a natural and additive-free way to store food for long periods. Ensuring that the jars, lids, and all equipment used are sterile is also an essential step. Any contamination could compromise the seal and introduce bacteria or fungi that would spoil the food. Proper sterilization, combined with the heat treatment of the water bath, ensures that the preserved food remains safe for consumption for years to come. Number 2. Historical roots of water bath canning. Nicholas Appert's development of water bath canning in the early 1800s revolutionized food preservation, transforming the way societies stored food. Appert's invention was partly driven by a reward from the French government, who sought a reliable way to feed troops with preserved food during wartime. Appert's method involved placing food in glass jars, sealing them with cork, and heating them in boiling water, laying the foundation for both the commercial canning industry and home food preservation. Initially, his technique utilized glass jars, which were then replaced by metal cans and eventually evolved into the jars we know today, fitted with two-piece metal lids to ensure a tight vacuum seal. The Amish quickly adapted water bath canning for their own use, fitting well with their self-reliant and off-grid lifestyle. They prioritized this method to preserve fruits, vegetables, and other high-acid foods due to its simplicity and natural preservation qualities. Amish communities value seasonality, so they often prepare vast quantities of food during harvest seasons, ensuring a stable, varied diet through the winter and lean months without relying on store-bought, processed goods. This approach not only reflects their commitment to self-sufficiency, but also their dedication to food quality and sustainable living. Number 3, the step-by-step process of Amish water bath canning. The Amish water bath canning process begins with choosing the right jars. Using only jars designed for canning is crucial since these are tempered to withstand high heat. Wide-mouth jars are often preferred as they make it easier to fill and clean, though regular mouth jars work just as well for most foods. Once jars are chosen, inspect them thoroughly. Even tiny chips, cracks, or imperfections can compromise the seal, making the food vulnerable to spoilage. After inspection, jars and lids should be washed in hot soapy water, ensuring any factory residue or storage dust is removed. Sterilization is a vital step. Boiling jars in water for 10 minutes ensures any bacteria, fungi, or lingering particles are eradicated. Sterilizing not only reduces the risk of contamination, but also helps in creating the optimal environment for a vacuum seal. To save time, the sterilizing water can later be used for the water bath, conserving resources and making the process efficient. Food preparation varies widely depending on what you're preserving. For fruits, peeling and removing pits are common steps. Vegetables might need blanching to soften or enhance flavor. For liquids like sauces or syrups, skimming off foam is essential to maintain quality. It's also important to use recipes specific to water bath canning to ensure that the acidity is high enough to be safely processed without pressure canning. When filling jars, using a funnel helps reduce spills and food residue on the rims. The headspace left at the top of each jar is crucial. Too much or too little can prevent proper sealing. Usually, 1/4 to 1/2 inch is recommended, though it varies by recipe. Removing air bubbles trapped inside the jar is also key. A spatula or bubble remover tool is run along the inside walls of the jar to release any air pockets, which, if left inside, could affect the vacuum seal and increase the risk of spoilage. After filling, wiping the jar rims clean is more than just a neatness step. Any food residue on the rim can prevent the lid from sealing properly. Metal bands should be secured to fingertip tightness. Over-tightening can cause the lids to warp, and under-tightening might lead to a failed seal. The idea is to allow air to escape during processing, but not allow water or new air to enter the jars. The water bath itself must be set up to maintain a rolling boil throughout the entire processing time. The pot or canner should be deep enough to fully submerge the jars with at least 1 to 2 inches of water above them. It's important to start timing only once the water has reached a full boil again after adding the jars. The time needed depends on the type of food, its acidity, and even your altitude, as higher altitudes require longer processing times. consistency in maintaining the temperature and boiling level is crucial for both safety and successful sealing. After the recommended processing time, jars should be removed carefully using a jar lifter. Handling jars gently prevents cracking or disturbing the lids before they properly seal. Once out of the water, jars should be placed on a towel or wooden surface. Direct contact with a cold countertop can cause jars to crack. Allow the jars to cool undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. As they cool, you'll hear a satisfying pop sound, which is the vacuum seal forming. The lids will become concave, indicating a successful seal. After cooling, it's essential to test the seals by pressing the center of each lid. A properly sealed lid won't flex or make a popping sound. Any jars that failed to seal should be reprocessed immediately or stored in the refrigerator for short-term use. Proper labeling with dates and contents is recommended for easy inventory management, ensuring that your preserved food is consumed in its prime. Number 4, science behind preservation, why it works. The science behind Amish water bath canning hinges on two main principles: thermal destruction of pathogens and the creation of a hermetic vacuum seal. During the boiling process, the temperature reaches around 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius, which is sufficient to kill most molds, yeasts, and spoilage bacteria in high-acid foods. This high heat not only neutralizes microbes, but also denatures the natural enzymes found in fruits and vegetables that would otherwise break down the food over time, leading to spoilage and changes in taste and texture. The vacuum seal forms as the jar cools post-boiling. The heated food expands the air inside the jar, forcing some out. Upon cooling, the pressure inside the jar drops significantly, causing the lid to create a vacuum seal. This seal is not just a barrier, but actively inhibits oxygen from re-entering the jar. Oxygen is crucial for many forms of bacterial growth, so its absence halts any remaining microorganisms from proliferating. Moreover, anaerobic conditions prevent oxidation, which could otherwise alter the color, flavor, and nutritional content of the food, ensuring it remains shelf-stable and safe to eat. Number 5, long-term success and shelf life examples. Water bath. Canned foods have been known to last for decades, retaining both their safety and flavor when stored properly. Some families have reported opening jars of peaches, tomatoes, and preserves that have been kept for over 40 years, and while their color might slightly darken over time, the flavor and nutritional content often remain intact. This method is particularly effective for high-acid foods because the acidity acts as a natural preservative, creating an environment that hinders the growth of bacteria, including Clostridium botulinum, which causes botulism. Examples of longevity include sauerkraut and fruit jams that have lasted over 25 years while maintaining a pleasant taste and texture. The sugar content in jams acts as an additional preservative, further extending shelf life. Pickles, too, maintain their crunch for up to 15, 20 years due to the acidity of the vinegar brine. In some cases, Amish families pass down their jars of preserved foods as part of family traditions, offering a glimpse into preservation practices that withstand the test of time. The long shelf life is highly dependent on storing jars in a cool, dark place without exposure to direct sunlight or temperature fluctuations. Number 6. Best practices and avoiding common mistakes. One of the key best practices in water bath canning is ensuring jars are preheated before filling them with hot food. If hot food is poured into a cool jar, the temperature shock can cause breakage. Warming the jars in simmering water helps maintain the integrity of the glass and prevents cracking. Use the correct jar size as specified by the recipe. Incorrect jar sizes can alter processing times, potentially leading to underprocessing and unsafe food. Additionally, while filling, maintaining precise headspace is crucial. Too little headspace can cause food to overflow during processing, leading to seal failure, while too much can leave air trapped, affecting the vacuum seal. Avoid reusing metal lids, as they are designed for single use. Even if a lid appears intact, its seal may not hold during the canning process. Always use new lids and test the seal after cooling. If any lids are not properly sealed, refrigerate the contents and consume quickly, or reprocess the jar within 24 hours. When storing finished jars, remove the metal bands to prevent rusting and ensure any failed seals are detectable. Regularly check your preserved jars for leaks, swelling, or mold, which indicate spoilage. Number 7. Benefits for frugal living and self-reliance. Water bath canning not only lowers grocery bills, but also increases self-reliance by allowing you to control the quality of your food. By preserving peak season fruits and vegetables, you capture nutrients when they're most abundant, providing healthier options throughout the year. For gardeners, it's an excellent way to preserve surplus harvests that would otherwise go to waste, turning excess produce into jams, sauces, or pickled items that stay fresh for years. This practice allows you to take advantage of local sales and farmers markets, where produce is often cheaper in large quantities. Canning these seasonal items means you aren't reliant on store-bought goods, many of which may contain preservatives, additives, and extra sugars. In emergencies or during disruptions in food supply, having home canned goods guarantees access to nutrient-rich foods, adding a layer of preparedness that aligns with a frugal and self-reliant lifestyle. Additionally, canning promotes sustainable living by reducing single-use packaging waste, contributing to an environmentally conscious household. By making meals with pre-canned ingredients, you also save time on meal prep, offering convenience without compromising quality. Number 8. Dive deeper into food preservation techniques. Beyond water bath canning, other traditional preservation techniques offer a wide array of methods to keep food safe and nutritious for extended periods. One such method is fermentation, where natural bacteria convert sugars into acids, preserving food while adding beneficial probiotics. Think sauerkraut, kimchi, or homemade yogurt. Another method is drying and dehydrating, which removes moisture to prevent bacterial growth. Air drying herbs, sun drying fruits, or using a food dehydrator for meats and vegetables can create lightweight, long-lasting foods without refrigeration. Lactofermentation specifically uses salt to inhibit harmful bacteria, preserving vegetables like cucumbers or cabbage naturally. For meat and fish, curing and smoking are time-tested methods. Salt curing or sugar curing draws out moisture, while smoking adds flavor and creates an inhospitable environment for spoilage. Root cellaring is another technique. Storing root vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and apples in a cool, dark, and humid place can extend their shelf life through winter months. These methods require minimal equipment and can often be combined for enhanced preservation. For example, meats can be cured and then smoked for longer-lasting results. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more tips on traditional living, food preservation, and frugal lifestyle hacks. In our next video, we'll share a surprising money-saving tip that could change how you think about budgeting and resourcefulness. Stay tuned and happy canning!